Okay, so today we are going somewhere a little different. And I love this one because it brings together two things that on the surface seem completely unrelated, but are actually, when you sit with them, speaking about the exact same energy. We're talking about abundance, real abundance, the kind that changes the material shape of your life. And we're talking about someone reaching out, a message, a call, something that breaks a silence that has been going on too long. And here is what I want you to understand before we even begin. These two things are not separate chapters, they are the same story. They are both about what happens when you finally step fully into the version of yourself that was always waiting to be inhabited. So settle in. This one is going to go deep and it is going to go wide. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And if this is your reading and something in you already knows, if it is, subscribe because we have so much more to explore together. Let's go. There is a version of your life that exists slightly ahead of the one you are currently living. Not in a fantastical sense, not in the sense of a dream that floats forever just out of reach, beautiful and untouchable, but in the very practical, very real sense of a life that has already been built in potential, in blueprint, in the particular quality of energy that surrounds a person who is moving in the right direction, even when the destination is not yet fully visible. You may feel that version sometimes in the moments when something clicks. When an idea arrives with unusual clarity, when you find yourself in a conversation or a situation where everything feels aligned, where your skills and your interests and the needs of the world around you converge in a way that produces a specific, unmistakable feeling of rightness, of being exactly where you are supposed to be, doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing. That feeling is not imagination. It is not wishful thinking dressed up as intuition. It is the sensation of proximity to something real, of brushing up against the life that is waiting for you to step into it fully without the hesitation and self doubt and endless qualification that keeps most people orbiting their own potential without ever quite landing in it. Something about the energy around you right now suggests that the gap between where you are and where that version of your life begins is smaller than it has ever been. That something is shifting in your thinking, in your circumstances, in the particular alignment of your choices and your readiness that is closing that gap with unusual speed. Let's talk about wealth. Not as an abstraction, not as a number, not as a destination, but as a relationship, because that is what it actually is. Wealth, in the deep sense of the word, the kind that is sustainable, the kind that grows rather than depletes, the kind that changes not just what you have, but who you are in the world, is fundamentally a relationship between a person and their own capacity, between what someone knows how to do and what the world is willing to receive from them, between the value that lives inside a person and their willingness to bring it fully into contact with the world rather than holding it back out of fear or doubt or the particular learned smallness that says, who am I to ask for this much? The people who accumulate real wealth, not the people who stumble into money through luck or inheritance, but the people who build it, who create it from the particular combination of vision and persistence and genuine value creation. Those people share something interesting, not intelligence necessarily, though many of them are deeply intelligent, not even ambition in the conventional sense, though many of them are driven. What they share is a specific relationship with their own worth, a willingness to look at what they carry, the skills, the ideas, the perspectives, the particular way they see problems and solutions, and say, without apology and without excessive qualification, this is valuable. This deserves to be compensated. I am not asking for permission to be worth this much. That relationship with your own worth, with your own capacity, with your own right to occupy significant space in the world of value exchange seems to be shifting for you. Something is coming into alignment that was previously slightly out of alignment. Not because you have changed fundamentally, but because something in the way you understand yourself and your place in the world is crystallizing into a clarity that makes action easier, more natural, less fraught with the second guessing that slows most people down. There is a particular moment in every significant financial transformation that almost no one talks about because it is so interior and so invisible that it leaves no trace anyone can point to. It is the moment when a person stops asking whether they deserve abundance and starts asking how to create it. These seem like similar questions. They are not. The first question is backwards facing. It is concerned with justification, with earning the right to want what you want, with proving something to an imagined audience that is never quite satisfied with the proof. It keeps a person in a loop, doing more, achieving more, improving more, but never quite arriving at the place where they feel they have demonstrated sufficient worthiness. Because the question itself assumes a deficit, assumes that the worthiness is not inherent but must be demonstrated. The second question faces forward. It takes worthiness as a given, not arrogantly, not without humility, but simply as a fact that no longer requires proving and directs all of that energy that was previously spent on justification toward something much more productive, toward the actual mechanics of building, toward the specific, practical, actionable question of, given that I am someone who deserves a large and abundant life, what do I do next? The shift from the first question to the second is one of the most significant internal transitions a person can make. And something about the energy around you suggests that shift is happening or has happened recently in the quiet of some private hour, without announcement, without ceremony, but with the particular irreversibility of a genuine internal change. You may not have named it yet, but it is there, and it is beginning to reorganize things. Now, let's talk about the practical dimension of this, because abundance is not only internal, it does not materialize purely from mindset. It requires action, strategy, the willingness to take risks that feel uncomfortably large, the discipline to build things that take longer to produce results than impatience would prefer. But here is what the internal shift does that nothing external can replicate. It changes the quality of your action. It changes the decisions you make about what to pursue and what to let go of. It changes your relationship with risk from something that needs to be minimized at all costs to something that needs to be sized correctly and then walked through. It changes what you are willing to ask for and who you are willing to ask and how you show up when the asking requires more confidence than you feel in that particular moment. The internal shift changes your relationship with time. Most people who have not yet made peace with their own worth tend to think about wealth in terms of what they can accumulate quickly, in terms of speed and proof and visible results that confirm they are on the right path. But people who have settled into a genuine knowing of their own value tend to think in longer arcs in terms of what they are building rather than what they are achieving. In terms of legacy and sustainability and the kind of financial foundation that does not fluctuate with every shift in circumstance because it is built on something real. That longer arc thinking may be arriving for you now. The sense that what you are building is not a quick win, but a genuine foundation. That the choices you make now, the skills you develop, the relationships you cultivate, the value you bring into the world consistently and without waiting for recognition before you show up fully. These are laying something brick by brick, choice by choice, in a way that will become visible in time. And now the person, the message, the call. I want to be careful here because these two energies, the abundance and the connection, are genuinely intertwined in what is forming around you right now. And the way they are intertwined is worth understanding rather than simply receiving as a pleasant coincidence. When a person steps more fully into their own worth, when they stop apologizing for taking up space, stop minimizing what they bring, stop making themselves smaller to fit the comfort zones of people who are not ready for their full size. Something happens in the relational field around them. Other people feel it often before they can articulate it, often before the person themselves has fully registered that the shift has occurred. There is a quality that emerges in people who are genuinely coming into themselves, not the performance of confidence, which most people can detect immediately, even if they cannot name what feels off about it, but the real thing, the quiet, grounded, entirely unhurried quality of someone who knows who they are and has stopped needing external validation to maintain that knowledge. It reads as stillness, as ease, as a kind of presence that does not demand anything but receives everything: attention, respect, interest, almost effortlessly. This quality is, among other things, extraordinarily compelling to people who have been watching you from a distance, to people who have been aware of you, who have been holding feelings about you, carrying thoughts of you, sitting with the question of reaching out. This shift in your energy is not invisible, it registers. It changes the calculation they have been running in the background about whether to break the silence. Let me tell you something about why people reach out after a silence. It is almost never because the feelings that created the silence have gone away. Silences between people who have shared something real are not the product of indifference. We have talked about this before, and it bears repeating. The silence is a holding pattern, a period of internal processing that looks from the outside like nothing and is from the inside everything. But there is usually a trigger, something that breaks the holding pattern, something that tips the balance from the safety of silence toward the risk of contact. And one of the most common triggers, perhaps the most common trigger, that does not involve an external event is the perception that the other person has changed, has grown, has moved into a version of themselves that is somehow more fully realized than before. This is counterintuitive. You might expect that people reach out when they sense vulnerability, when the other person seems to need something, to be struggling, to be in a place where contact might be welcomed because support is needed. And sometimes that is true, but far more often, what breaks a silence is the opposite. It is the sense that the other person is doing well, is growing, is becoming more of who they are, is perhaps moving in a direction that, if they continue, will place them further rather than closer to where they were. There is a specific feeling that produces a feeling that could be described as something like, if I don't reach out now, the moment will pass. Not in a desperate way, not in a possessive way, but in the very human way of someone who realizes they have been waiting for a perfect moment that does not exist, and that the imperfect, real moment in front of them is the only thing actually on offer. The message or call that seems to be forming, that seems to be making its way toward the surface of what is possible between you, carries that energy. The energy of someone who has been in a holding pattern long enough, who has been rehearsing and reconsidering and waiting for some internal threshold to be crossed, and who may be feeling, in response to something they are perceiving about where you are and where you are going, that the threshold has been crossed, that the time for holding has passed. What they may not fully realize is that the thing they are responding to, the quality in you that is triggering this shift in their own calculations, is the same energy that is also restructuring your relationship with abundance. It is the same shift, the same arrival into a more complete version of yourself, the same quiet, powerful, unannounced transition from someone who is becoming to someone who, in some essential way, simply is. These two things, the material abundance and the personal connection, are arriving from the same root. They are not separate gifts delivered by separate forces. They are the natural consequence of a single interior movement, of you stepping more fully into your own story, your own worth, your own right to take up exactly as much space as you actually take up. Let's sit with what this might actually look like in practical terms, because I think it is worth being specific, worth making this as concrete as possible so it can be held rather than simply admired. In the realm of abundance, there may be an opportunity arriving or already present and not yet fully recognized that requires a specific kind of courage. Not the dramatic leap off the cliff courage of movies, but the quieter, more demanding courage of saying yes to something before you feel completely ready, of making an investment of time, of resources, of reputation in something that your skills and your instincts say is right, even when the rational mind wants more certainty before it will commit. The transition toward significant wealth almost always involves at least one moment of that kind, one decision made from a place of genuine self trust rather than external confirmation. One step taken before the path fully reveals itself, and the readiness for that step, the internal readiness, the willingness to trust yourself without waiting for the world to first confirm that you are worth trusting, seems to be genuinely present for you in a way it may not have been before. In the realm of the person, the message or call, when it comes and something suggests it is building toward coming, not as a certainty, but as a distinct possibility, will likely arrive in a form that is simpler than you expect. The grand gestures, the carefully prepared speeches, the elaborate reaching outs of romantic fantasy, those are performances. What is building here feels less like a performance and more like a simple, direct, perhaps imperfect, but deeply genuine, I have been wanting to reach out. I am reaching out now. And when it does, whether it arrives in a week or in a month or in some form you don't yet recognize as what you were waiting for, you will know what to do with it. Not because you have planned for it, but because you will be, by then, standing even more fully in who you are. And from that ground, the right response will not need to be calculated. It will simply be clear. Here is what I want to leave you with, and I want it to be something you carry beyond this reading, beyond today, into the actual texture of your daily life. You are in a period of genuine expansion. Not the kind of expansion that happens to you that is bestowed or granted or arrives through luck or the goodwill of forces outside yourself, but the kind that emerges from you, from the specific, irreplaceable, completely yours combination of everything you have learned and survived and built and become. From the choices you are making, quietly and consistently, to honor what you know yourself to be capable of rather than settling for the safer, smaller version. The abundance is real, the connection is real, but they are both reflections of something that begins in you, in the quality of your self knowing, in the steadiness of your self trust, in the willingness to stop waiting for permission to inhabit your own life fully. No one is going to give you that permission. It was never theirs to give. It was always yours to take quietly, firmly, without apology, in whatever ordinary Tuesday or unremarkable morning